Welcome back, guys, to the best home building channel on YouTube. In today's video, we're going to go over things that most people don't tell you before building a house. And we're going to be doing things that aren't very flashy. We're going to be doing things that, you know, most people wouldn't even know how to say what we're doing. But what I mean by that is there's a lot of unhidden things when you're building a house that need done that most people don't really think about even mentioning. Like, for instance, today we're going to be taking off all these braces on the walls and filling in some plywood that needed finished up on the walls. Ever since we set the trusses, put the roof on, we were in a rush to do that, so now there's a lot of finishing up to do on the framing. So we're going to be going over that and some other things like that, so be sure to tag along. Alright, so the first thing we're going to be doing is see all that bracing that's still stuck on the wall from setting the trusses even clear up in those peaks. All that stuff needs taken off before we do siding. And so let's walk around the side here and I'm going to show you something else that we're going to be working on today. Man, it's a beautiful day here in the US. But if you look up here, see that opening that needs plywood clearly? That needs filled in with plywood, and the reason why there's not plywood on there yet is, like I said earlier, just have not had time to jump in and do that yet. But now that we have time, we're going to do it. So that needs done, and then if you look over here, these windows need cut out. That needs cut out before you set the windows clearly. We need to take all this plywood, get rid of that because the excavator's coming. And when he comes, all the stuff needs to be out of the way because you do not want to waste excavating time because that stuff is expensive. And if you look, we got more fill-in to do up here. Take those little kicker boards off that we had when we were setting that reverse gable. You can see I got that filled in there yesterday, so that's all filled in. Just need that house wrap pulled down. And if you look over here, I got all the bracing off on this side, so that's all ready to go. And if you look at like even just this, that all was folded up and I had to fold it back down. I don't know if you've seen my video of how to prepare trusses to be set by a crane and all that, but if you haven't watched it, go check it out. I'll put a card up here. But that's where I put the house wrap on and the bracing on the ground, so that way when you set it, it's already ready to go. But yeah, after you do it, you still got to come through. If you look up here, it all needed overlapped. I did all that already. Like I said, I did that yesterday, so that's why I didn't put out any footage yesterday, because it was I was so busy, you know. All right, so that needs done. If you look over here, just like these corners, you gotta fold that house wrap over and you know, take your I have that little Hitachi nailer that you've seen where I shoot the staples for the cap nails. So that's a big help. We'll be using that today. And even over here, if you look, I'll show you. Back here, I got started yesterday. And this still needs house wrap put on it. That house wrap, what it does is just seals the air from coming through all the cracks in the wood. So it's something you definitely should have on there. By code nowadays, it's actually something you have to do. So we're going to be doing that. This side, if you look here, same thing. You got your kicker boards that need taken off clear from where we set the walls. This house wrap right there, that clearly needs finished. That joint, actually, if you look there, it still needs nailed off even. So we'll be getting the little framing nailer out to finish that. And again, this is stuff most contractors or home builders, you know, don't even really mention just because it's kind of part of the framing. But when you're building your own house, I just want you to be well informed of what you're going to be up against. So again, you're going to be up against trying to get it dried in as quick as possible, taking off all these strong backs, all this stuff you're going to have to do on your days off from your regular job or on the weekends, however you're doing it. So let's get started. There's a lot to do. All right, now what we got to do is get up in this peak and start pulling off all that bracing. Sounds like fun, doesn't it? All right, so I'm going to start this bottom right here behind me, pulling these strong backs off. So let's get started. Like I said already, this type of work is not really mentioned to you when you're going to go build your own house by anybody. So you'll learn as you go. There's lots of things that you got to do that you did not anticipate on having to do. As you could assume, there's a ton of work when it comes to building your own house. But if you can see in this video here, The backfilling isn't done, so that's another obstacle that's a little challenging. But here I am. I just put the ladder up against the house and knocked off one side of the strong back just because it was already braced against the piece of 2x4 that was there, so it made it a little easier to hit off. But then I got that one off. Now I'm over here trying to get this one off. Doing the old put the hammer behind the board wedge trick to use leverage to try to pull it off. But these things, you know, you nail them pretty heavily. I don't know if you can see all the nails right there and those falling down, but there's probably a good 50 nails in that one board. But you do not want those strong backs going anywhere when you're putting your trusses up. So now those are for the piggybacks, the ones I'm pulling off now. Those were the little kicker boards for the piggyback truss that's on top of the truss below it. And if you watch my video on when I did the building the overhangs and everything, you'll see the piggybacks are just a smaller truss. But this is a little off topic, but look how blue that sky is. I mean, that looks so good. But now I'm just pulling this house wrap down over top of the house wrap layer below it. That way when water hits it, it goes over top of it just like a shingle or siding would. It just helps keep your house a little more dry while you're waiting to do siding. I know, you know, the house wrap really ain't meant to waterproof your house. It's more just to keep the draft out of your house and seal up all the cracks and everything. But it definitely helps keep the water out. I don't care what anybody says. But even when I do my windows, I try to wrap the house wrap over top of the flange of the window. That way it's nice and watertight. And then, you know, I still do the flashing tape and all that when I do my windows. It's a little scary up there on that ladder. I don't know if you can tell or not, but it's a good probably, let me turn the camera up. It's probably about 30 feet from the ground up to that peak. It's kind of hard to tell on camera, but it can be a little scary up there. So now that we got the boards down out of that peak, so I'm pulling that house wrap down, stapling the edges now. So I'm going to do that and then continue this bottom part, and I got to nail off this joint over here. I think there's one right there, so nail those off, fold the house wrap just like we've been doing. Like I already said, I usually do this house wrap on the ground, but as you can see, the edge here did not have a long enough piece on it, so I'm trying to tack it on now. And you can see how much harder it is to do this up in the air on a ladder than it would have been to do it on the ground. But, you know, I can't be perfect. I can't get everything perfect before the trusses are set, so little tidying up here. I want you to take a good look at this nail. This nail went through my shoe and into my foot. That is why you knock all the nails out of boards before you throw them off onto the ground, because you'll forget and step on a nail. You're about to witness why I recommend doing the house wrap on the ground while the wall's laying down. So if you take anything away from this video today, it's to make sure you do your house wrap while the walls or the trusses are laying on the ground, because you got to go back and do it like this, and it is way more challenging. As you can see, your ladder's in the way, you're trying to hold it, and thank God I got this pneumatic cap nailer, because without it it'd be even more challenging. So you can see I just got to anchor one top corner, and then after I do that I'll have to stretch it across the wall and just kind of tack it as I go, and it's much more of a pain to do it now, but it is what it is. We're doing it, and we're not going to complain too much about it. It's just part of the job. And if you're asking why the house wrap wasn't put on this wall, to be honest with you, the section right here with this patio door, I left the plywood off because I ran short. So I just finished plywooding it the other day, so I had to leave the house wrap off because of that, which I could have easily house wrapped part of it, but I was in kind of a hurry, and now I'm paying for it. My ladder just fell. That's real great too. But as you can see, I'm just kind of rolling it out and tacking it as I go, and now I'm in this corner, and right here it gets really frustrating. The house wrap just wants to fold over on top of you, and you know, you can't really see what you're doing as far as trying to cut a straight line because it's all folded up. You just got to kind of use reference marks on the house wrap as you cut it. But it's a struggle, man. It's a struggle, I'm not going to lie. But you know, after doing it a few times, you'll learn to make sure you put your house wrap on the wall while it's laying on the ground, and you won't have to fight it later. For those of you that follow me on TikTok, you may have already heard me say this on there, but if you see the window, I already have it cut out, and when I put the house wrap over it with the window cut out, it lets the light into the house, yet it keeps the elements out. So it's always a good idea to cut the plywood out and put the house wrap over it, at some point. I know in my other videos when I was building the walls I didn't do that, but I can cut the plywood out after the fact without cutting the house wrap by using a Sawzall blade. That's the right depth. And if you want to follow me on TikTok, just look up The Excellent Laborer on TikTok if you want to follow me on there. I have fun on both platforms. Woohoo, that's so fun! As you see here, I have one leg off the ladder. I do not recommend you doing stuff like that. I just happened to be in a bind and felt like that was the right thing to do. But do not do that at home, people. But everywhere you have a lap to where there's an edge of house wrap, make sure you nail that off fairly well, because that's where the wind is going to grab. It's going to grab anywhere. And now, like I said already, go through, just nail it off. And with this pneumatic nailer, it is a lifesaver for this. And you can see the deck goes right here. I just have not put it on yet, and I will be doing that probably here shortly. Alright, that house wrap is on that wall. If you notice, I cut the door out, but I did not cut this window out right here, and that's because I don't want the air blowing in, but I want the light coming in, so I left the house wrap over it. If you're wondering why in the world somebody would record themselves pulling a kicker board off and putting it on YouTube, I'll tell you why I'm doing it. It's because I'm trying to keep this channel real. I mean, see the struggles of just having to do something simple like pulling off a kicker board. But I'll tell you right now, there's probably a good 10 nails in the base of that thing, because if you watch my video when we built this wall, you put those on first, that way when you slide your wall against it and stand it up, it's a nice secure kicker so that wall does not fall off side of the house and break to pieces. So it may take a little time to do, but it's definitely something you should put on and nail fairly heavy so you don't lose your wall. And if you can see here, I'm doing the old use the hammer nail puller trick, and you just use that to wedge behind the board, pry on it, and leverage will pull that kicker board off. And I'll be honest, it's definitely on there well, like I was just saying. Now this is what I'm going to do to try to keep this board safe from stepping on it. Right now you can't see it, but I'm hitting those nails back down through that board so I don't step on it later. So I don't know how that board got on the ground earlier I stepped on. I guess I pulled it off and forgot to do that. But very important to beat those nails back down through, or even pull them all the way out so no one steps on a nail. That is a big hazard. And you can see I always have a scrap pile on each side of the house, because you're going to have a bunch of scraps when you go to pulling this stuff off, like the bracing and these kicker plates. And again, you know, this isn't like real flashy work. This isn't anything fancy. It's just, you know, the grind you got to do when you're building your own house, man. And here's my little stapler. I'm going to staple the edge here, fold that house wrap over, make a nice, pretty, clean finish. And right here, I have to nail off that joint where when I stood that wall up. If you watch the video, like I said, when I built this wall, you do not nail the one side of the sheathing and it butts up into the other side of the wall. Then you just nail it off from the outside. So when you build walls in sections, that's what you got to do. So again, every 6 inches is what you nail that sheathing on the edge. And unfortunately, you got to use a ladder typically to get up and do it. That's what I mean. Everything's way easier when these walls are laying on the ground. So, and then you can see I leave that house wrap about a foot longer than it has to be, so that way there's plenty of fold there to fold over onto the next side, and keeps it nice and airtight. And the weather was perfect for this on this day. For a November day, it was t-shirt weather, as you can see. So I was blessed to have that, and I'm trying to get everything kind of dried in before the snow starts blowing. So I am definitely at the nick of time for that. This is how well a kicker board comes off when there's only 5 nails in it. Watch this. Boom. Alright guys, thanks a lot for watching. I'm going to finish up everything I showed you in the beginning of the video, so I'm going to do that. And I'm going to put a link in the description for a stock trading app called Webull. If you're interested in stocks, they give you a couple free stocks if you sign up and if you deposit $100. But if not, that's cool. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.